Alright, thank you for your time. That sucked. Have you ever left an interview feeling like it was a complete waste of time? Maybe the interview was all over the place and the interviewer was just not interested in being there at all. Odds are you're not imagining things. Every now and then you might run into a really bad interview that does not have anything to do with you. My 20 years working as a hiring manager, I've seen it all. And in this video, I'm going to go over what you can do to help save an interview, especially when it's clear that the interviewer has no idea what they are doing. The biggest problem you'll run into as far as bad interviews are concerned is when the interviewer decides within the first 90 seconds whether or not they want to hire you. First impressions matter a lot, and while it's unfair to judge a candidate's capabilities within the first couple of minutes, a lot of interviewers do this. In fact, 2/3 of interviewers claim that the eye contact and appearance are key factors when deciding between two identical candidates. Meanwhile, over 50% of interviewers claim that they look for non-verbal confidence cues, your posture, how you walk through the door, a firm handshake, etc. And this is pretty unfair because the best way to know if a candidate is a good fit for the job is by looking at their past performance, by, asking questions. Unfortunately, this is a game that 1/3 of all interviewers play, where first impressions mean everything. So as much as this sucks, we have to play their game. These are some things you can do to have that really strong first impression. Number 1, maintain eye contact. Keep a strong eye contact within the first couple of minutes of meeting the interviewer. This is especially important for in-person interviews, where there are more things around to distract you. 2, act with confidence. As soon as you walk through that door, make sure that you are behaving in a way that shows confidence. Is your back straight? Did you offer a firm handshake? Are you smiling when answering questions? Do you have an open body language? These will be some of the small things that interviewers look for, and as you're getting back to more and more in-person interviews, it can be helpful to practice. 3, dress for success. This one is pretty straightforward. You want to dress for the job you want. Clean, business professional, or business casual. It could help to maybe look into what the company culture is like and try to emulate that through your attire. The next kind of interview that is just as awful are the interviews that overly rely on human judgment. You might be wondering, aren't all interviews based on human judgment? After all, your interviewer is human. What I mean by this is interviews that lack structure, where instead of collecting data points between multiple candidates, the interviewers are just collecting impressions that are a waste of time for everyone. When it comes down to it, if an interviewer had to make a hiring decision based solely on unstructured interviews, the odds of them picking out the better of the two candidates is less than 60%. That means that human judgment is just slightly better than a coin toss. If you feel like your interviewer is just playing things by ear and that there really isn't any structure or process to the questions being asked, you need to start taking charge of the interview and proactively suggest questions that you really want to answer. For example, if you feel that the icebreaker or intro part of the interview is taking way too long, you can offer a quick executive summary of yourself and jump right into the key experiences that would make you a great fit for the company. Or if you feel like the questions aren't really going anywhere, you can try asking the interviewer about the culture of the company and lead the conversation towards how you'd thrive in such an environment. By the way, if you feel like you've gotten value from this video, please consider liking and subscribing. We're constantly pushing out new content to help you with your interview and career. And check out tryvoomer.com, where you can practice some questions for thousands of different companies and get AI-powered feedback on your answers so you can quickly improve and land that dream job. Another interview format that sounds good in theory, but is just awful in practice are panel interviews, where you have multiple people interviewing you at once. The idea is that by just adding more interviewers, it's more likely that everyone will be able to agree on the best candidate, since each one will have their own perspective and everyone's going to agree on the person that has the best fit. In reality, studies show that adding extra panelists doesn't make a difference to the outcome of the interview. These panel interviews can be really confusing when it's not clear who the lead interviewer is, and you just end up having people not paying attention and asking the same questions. The trick with these interviews is to pay very close attention when the panel is giving their intro. Focus on the person who is clearly the most senior one in the room and make the most eye contact with that person and engage the most with them. That person has the most influence when it comes to making a decision, and the other more junior people tend to follow their lead. Make sure you're spending the most amount of time answering their questions, and be sure to have a few questions you can direct back at them. Another awful type of interview is the one that involves pseudoscience and involves weird questions that rely on intuition. Questions like, if you were an animal, what would you be? Or what is your favorite color? They really don't add anything to the interview. Instead, the only thing they do is confirm the interviewer's biases and throw everyone off track. Interviewers that use these questions tend to justify them as pseudoscience, like how it gives insight to personalities or work preferences. But there are other, more direct ways to explore these topics, and studies show that these types of questions are just not helpful at all at an interview. Instead of humoring them, it might be better to challenge the use of these questions and shift the focus of the interview towards questions that are directly related to the role, job, and company. Similar to the pseudoscience questions, pointless brain teasers also make up a bad interview experience. Studies show that these questions are, for the most part, a waste of time. They give no indication of how well you actually performing the job. Instead, they only really serve to catch you off guard. The best thing here, honestly, is just get through the question, focus on the process of how you would get to the answer. Don't focus on getting the right answer because there is no right answer. Towards the end of the answer, you can try to gently nudge the interviewer back to focus on the actual job by asking a couple of questions on your own about the company or position. And the worst type of interviews are the ones where the interviewer is disorganized, doesn't take any notes, and doesn't follow structure. Interviews that lack structure are a huge red flag. This means that the interviewer does not have a process to compare strong candidates between each other. It's really hard to ace an interview when the interviewer themselves don't know what they're looking for. Offer a little summary of the conversation to help tie everything together. Proactively ask for next steps and bring up any qualifications or certificates that you might have that make you a strong candidate. You can't always depend on the interviewer to properly do their job, so giving them a quick executive summary towards the end with action items will help you stand out and move the hiring process along. Unfortunately, when it comes down to it, not every interview will be a home run, and sometimes no matter how much you prepare, things will go wrong. It's really not your fault if you get stuck with a bad interviewer, but it doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. By giving a strong first impression and helping steer the conversation towards a more productive one, you can make even the worst interviewers walk away feeling like you are a strong candidate. The focus of these interviews should be on you, the job position, and the company. If things stray from this topic, don't be shy to politely, firmly bring the conversation back to these points. And you can get really good at that through practice. And the best way to practice is at tryvoomer.com, where you can practice on questions for thousands of different companies and get AI feedback on your answers so you can quickly improve and land that dream job. Please let me know in the comments below if you have any questions. I usually get back to them within one day. And as always, good luck with your interviews.
Check out the rest of our channel for more interview tips, including things such as improving your camera and audio setup.